Hey there, Ride the Car Guy here, and today we are getting this engine ready to go back into the Titan. In our last video, we tackled our timing, put the timing cover on, it's looking good so far, and now we just need to get everything else put back on. A few things I did off camera is I put the signal plate or drive plate back on. It was pretty simple. You just slap it on there, put your little backer plate on, and put the bolts in. Now, it doesn't tell you a specific order to put them in, but it does say to put them in at 65 foot-pounds and to lubricate them with new engine oil. So just get that on there, no big deal. We use the same, what was it called? Flywheel locking tool, and I used it just like we did to take it off and put it back on. It's real simple. I also put some of the brackets back on. I'm starting to put that together. And then that was pretty much it. So today we're going to handle the upper oil pan, the lower oil pan, and then really just start throwing stuff back on the engine. So I'll walk you through the upper oil pan. There's a few steps we need to make sure we do correctly there. But the rest is really just reversing the steps from, like, I don't know, part 5 or 6 or something like that. So we'll do it a little bit differently, but you'll see it when it comes. Lastly, before we get started, if you want to catch up to this point in the video series, go ahead and click the link in the upper right-hand corner of the screen where I created a playlist of all of the 10 previous videos leading up to this one. All right, let's jump in. For our upper oil pan, we of course have all the bolts that I hope you organized earlier. I did the cardboard punch-out method again, and I made sure everything was very clean. Of course, the surface is probably the second most important part. Of course, you want to get all the grime and everything out of the bottom so you're not picking up any garbage after you reinstall it. I also made sure that the ports were all clean. This one comes from the oil pickup in your sump. These, of course, go from the oil cooler to the pump itself, so you want to make sure those are nice and clean. And we'll, of course, get our O-ring set in place on the block side before we drop this in. This one's looking for a much bigger bead. So before we were doing, I think it was like 1 to 2 millimeters in diameter. This one, it's looking for 4 to 5 millimeters. So I cut the tip a little bit bigger to make sure that we have that ready to go. And I also made sure to clean the block surface because there's a couple spots where, you know, the rear main seal and the front timing cover where a little bit of RTV pops through and you want to cut that off. So let's go drop our O-rings on our block, come back here, throw the bead on, and then we're ready to go. Now on the block side, again, just like on the oil pan, you want to make sure this is all nice and clean, free of any debris. And then also check the spots where you installed your rear main seal and your front cover because obviously we put RTV in there, right? And so it's going to squeeze down and kind of drip down here. So make sure that's all nice and clean. And then we're going to go grab our little O-rings here to put into our oil pump and, of course, the passageway to the front cover. And then go back and put our RTV on. It's also going to be our last chance for a while, well, hopefully forever, to see the bottom of our crank. And so this is your chance if you want to put any oil or make sure anything's oiled and cleaned up and torqued to spec, everything is good to go. Now's your time to do that. I'm pretty happy with the way this looks. I'm just going to grab a little bit more oil. Just make sure these are nice and kind of, not really soaked, but have enough oil in them on first startup. Just me being a little paranoid. Next up, we need to grab our O-rings. We have one that has a little collar here, and that slides onto the oil pump, this one here. Then we have a good size one that goes here, feeds our crank. I'll put a little bit of oil on these here in a minute. I just want to make sure these all fit correctly. Yeah, that looks good. And let's grab our third one, wherever that is. Here's our third one. That's going to go on the other side of the oil pump. So I'm assuming that's like inlet and outlet, right? And then you have your one that goes to the front cover up to the crank. Real important one. So I'm just going to get a little oil on these just for the hell of it, just to make sure I feel good about it. I mean, we're keeping this surface, you know, flat. So obviously this isn't going to, there's no reason these would fall out. But, you know, it's just me being neurotic. Let's go back and grab the oil pan, get some Permatex on it, and drop that sucker on. All right, our bead is going to be nearly the same as when we did the front cover. The only difference is that there's going to be, and let me see here, this hole here, this is actually just a pass-through, and you unscrew it. This is bolt 10, I believe. I think it's number 10. And that's one that is inside sort of the sump when you flip it over. So we're going to put the bead on the inside here, or excuse me, the outside here and the inside of every other bolt hole, okay? So that's it. Let's put that bead on, get it flipped over. Okay, here we go again. I'm just gonna start right here so I don't forget to put this on the inside. and then I'm just going to make the round. All right, cool. I did the exact opposite of what I said I was going to do. This goes on the outside. Everything else goes on the inside. Pay attention, Rye. Gosh. There we go. All right. So definitely have some cleanup to do on this one because I went brain dead and I kept going on the outside of the bolt holes. I don't know why I was so confused by that, but evidently it was a bit much for me. I went through and created this bead. I'll show you real quick. It's not, again, not my finest work. If you've seen the other videos, I'm not good at this stuff. So it is a hefty bead, and most of it, it doesn't really matter, you know, how close it gets. A lot of the interior of this is not super critical, meaning like if you had a little bit like right here come in, it wouldn't be the end of the world. You just have a couple drains coming down from the cylinder heads. So that's my bead, and let's go get it on. You have two little pins here, one here, and really our main goal is don't get everywhere, don't get RTV everywhere, and make sure these don't get dislodged in the process. Again, with this, I think we're going to be just fine, but just watch those as you go. All right, I have it here. One last look. Make sure I feel okay with it. Looks pretty good, honestly. All right, let's do this. All right, have a problem. Getting oil everywhere. Hold on. I used some fresh oil earlier to run it through those oil passages after I ran air through it to make sure they're nice and clean. And I just used too much, clearly. So I do a quick little cleanup, and now we'll go back at it. Grab that one guide pin. Come on, baby. Here we go. And the other right there. Yes. Okay. They don't appear to be lining up. Why is that? Let's persuade it, shall we? There it goes. Whew. Okay. Don't know why I feel so out of breath. That was not difficult work. Now, what we need to do is go through, grab our bolts, and put them in the correct order, but just, again, get them fingered tight and, you know, have it marry a little bit. Let's grab my mallet again. And these were looking good, so I like it. Now we are going to drop them in a particular order, but this one, if you remember, we had up front that was causing issues. We couldn't get it out because of the oil cooler. All right, well, we have a bit of an issue here. I don't think we're going to have enough space to back it out without hitting our oil cooler. So I'm going to grab that and get that working first. There we go. Perfect. Grab the rest of them, these here, and start dropping them in. And I'm going to go grab my 10mm extender so I can drop in number, what is that, 15 and 16. Just like that. All right. Like wind chimes up in here. All right, everything seemed to drop in just fine, meaning it's aligned, right? And of course we had our pins too. But next I'm just going to grab my ratchet and get these in just so everything sort of sits flush and level. And then, of course, like before, we have to let it sit and for 1 hour before we can do our final torquing. So here's the order in which we need to bring these down. And that's how we're going to, obviously we're doing this step in that order, but this is also the final torquing spec as well. So just keep that in mind. All right, I have them all in finger tight. And now while we wait, I'm going to set a 1 hour timer, of course, to make sure we wait the appropriate amount of time. But while we wait, we can also get our strainer in. And we can't, unfortunately, do our lower oil pan because you have to get number 10 bolt here. But we'll get that done at least. We'll have that ready. So when the hour is up, we can slap it all together. All right, this one goes in at 16 foot-pounds. And I thought it was strange, but when I took it off, I noticed there wasn't a little gasket. And there also isn't one shown in the service manual, which is really strange, but you know, it is what it is. We're just going to get this on here, assuming it's just two, you know, nicely machined surfaces. So we grab that, drop in your bolts that you hopefully had organized, and put them in at 16 foot-pounds. I, of course, made sure that the strainer was nice and clean, free of any debris. that was probably, oddly enough, one of the cleanest things in here when we took it apart. So, and like I said, 16. Now, again, we have to wait, unfortunately, because it has this one little bolt here. But once that is all ready to go, we're going to tighten that down. And I actually bought a gasket conversion kit. So instead of doing RTV on this surface, we're actually just going to drop a gasket on and then drop our screws in and we're done, making it nice and easy. All right, it's been an hour and we're ready to torque down the upper oil pan. The order is the same as we just finger tightened them in. So go back through and put the bigger ones, so like the 12 millimeter, put those at 16 foot-pounds. But the two small ones in the rear behind the signal plate, you need to put those in at 80 inch-pounds. And those are 10 millimeter as well. So here we go. Let's get started. Upper oil pan is on. You're gonna have a little bit coming through. It looks kind of ugly. I'm just gonna wipe that down and clean up that edge. But other than that, let's move on to the lower oil pan. All right, lower oil pan. Like I said, I got a little gasket conversion kit. I'm tired of dealing with all the Permatex. So I'm just gonna set that down. Make sure that's clean, nice clean surface. Do it as if you were gonna use liquid gasket because it's just as important that it's clean. And we wanna do this order at this torque spec. And you just put them down, that's it. All right, the bottom end is sealed up, very exciting. Let's flip it over, take a look at it, and then I guess we just keep going. All right, this is looking amazing. Let's keep going. I want to start sealing up the engine, so to speak. So let's get the valve covers on next. So what we're going to do here is first I'm just going to get a little bit of oil on top of these cams since we're sealing them up for the last time here. And I just want to make sure everything is nice and coated. I, of course, have assembly lube on this, but the more the merrier with oil, right? So once we do that, we just need to grab our valve covers. I'm going to put in new valve cover gaskets. We just need to dab a little bit of RTV right here in these corners. I'll show you a picture of that to make sure we're clear. And then put it on. When you put them on, you need to put them on in this order, and it's going to be done in 2 stages. You're going to have 18 inch-pounds on the first stage, and then the second is going to be 73 inch-pounds. So let's knock that out. I'm going to pull off my old gasket. Well, old being relative, considering it was about, well, less than a year old, but that's all right. We got new ones in our kit, so just line the gasket up in the groove, and then make sure it's nice and kind of pushed up in there. And then set that aside, make sure you get your RTV in that corner, and then set it down on it. I'm also going to have my bolts ready so I can, get it all lined up and make sure that it goes in correctly. A little bit right there. Just like that. There we go. Grab your cover and set it down. You're going to have to push it over your spark plug tubes. It's just fine. There we go. Awesome. And the nice thing with the engine out is you can walk around the entire thing and make sure that your gasket is sitting correctly. And it is. That's awesome. So grab your bolts, slide them in. Probably should have cleaned some of these. That's all. I'll just put the ugliest ones in the back where you'll never see them. All right, I'm going to go knock out the other one, and then we're going to wait an hour, and then we're going to finish the torquing down. I don't think you really need to wait an hour in this particular instance because you're just doing those little dabs, but I'm going to do it anyways. So get the other one done to the exact same way. I'll show you, of course, the pattern for that one to torque it all down, and then that's it. All right, we waited long enough. We're going to go in the correct pattern here and just get these down to 18 and then do our second round at 70, whatever it was I said earlier. All right, reset up to 73 and go all over again. Well, both of those are done. I did both sides kind of simultaneously, but that's it. So once these are done, let's move on to the water pump. All right, next up we're going to tackle our water pump, and this isn't just any old water pump. This is a new water pump, and it is a special water pump. And it's special because it comes with a story. And throughout this whole video series, I've had a couple Super Thanks contributors, but none have been as generous as a contributor called Scott. He's gone through and he's contributed on every video and has been super, super generous. And about 6 videos in, I started running out of ways to say thank you. So as a joke, I said, hey, Scott, how about I name a part after you? And so I went ahead and named the water pump after Scott. We talked about it, and he said, what's the easiest thing to deal with on this engine? And this is one of the simpler parts we're going to install. So I took some very high temperature paint, did a horrible job masking, and I went ahead and named this part Scott. So this is Scott the water pump, and we're just going to install it in on the front of the engine. So one more time, thanks so much, Scott, for contributing to this video series. It's been super, super helpful. All right, we're going to grab our gasket, line it up here. Doesn't go that way either. Hold on. Let's figure this out. There's only so many ways it can go on. There we go. Put the gasket sort of in place. Grab one of the bolts. We'll grab a top bolt here. They're all the same. Slide a bolt through, and then slide the gasket over the bolt as well. There we go. And this should line it right up. Now I'm going to grab one more and make sure that we have everything lined up nice and cleanly before we go and tighten everything down. All of those go in at 18 foot-pounds. Oh man, this thing is looking pretty mean. I'm really excited about how it looks. I love the black and white contrast, and we have a splash of color coming. If you check out my social feed on YouTube, then you know that we have some bright red coolant hoses coming. So very excited about that. That's going to be in the next couple scenes here. We'll get that done. But regardless, I think what we're going to do now is do something a little bit different. So I think what we're going to do is just kind of do like a montage of throwing other stuff on this. And the reason I'm doing that is so you don't have to go back through my old videos and figure out what to do by going in reverse and figuring out the torque specs. So I'm literally just going to show you things as I'm putting them on, show you the torque specs, and show if there is an order. I don't think there's going to be, but if there's an order to putting the bolts on, I'll show you that as well. And then after that, we'll just probably close out the video and talk about what's coming next. So let's go ahead and do that. Well, my parts pile is getting smaller and my smile is getting bigger. We are officially ready to throw this thing back into the Titan. So that's what we're gonna do next week. The engine's looking really, really good. A couple mistakes I made. Yesterday, I got a little too distracted and I let the RTV dry on the front cover and I didn't wipe it off first, so it kind of looks like garbage. I'm gonna try to clean that up a little bit. And some of the other parts that I didn't go through and clean and paint, now that they're on the nice clean and white engine, they look a little dumb, but that's all right. I'm gonna level with you. I just really want this job done. A lot of this stuff we can take off and clean and paint later, but it's been 4 months now and I want my damn truck back. So we're gonna get this thing back in next week, and we'll talk a little bit about, you know, dropping it in and getting it connected to the transmission. But then after that, we'll probably take another break where you guys just reverse the steps that you took to take it out. Also, in the comments below, let me know what you thought of that little quick video montage of throwing parts on. Hopefully you found that helpful. At this point in a job, if you've been following along to this point, I should be able to give you a location and a torque spec, and you should be able to handle it. So hopefully that's the case. Let me know below what you thought though. If you like this video, please go ahead, scroll down, click that like button. Of course, subscribe to keep up on the remainder of this build, which is almost done. And any other content we put out here, always putting stuff out for the Titan and Nextera. And if this video, you know, helped you save time or money and you want to send me a tip, go ahead, scroll down, click that thanks button to send me a super thanks. Thanks so much for watching, guys. We'll see you in the next one.